I have a story to tell. It's a story in the compensation that we just read, that this story is now over, and that I have prevailed on you to come back with me in an idea that I am a teacher of an idea of escaping from the bondage of the idea of an enclosure. Now, look with me. The manner in which I intend to compensate for the illusion can include virtually anything. I suddenly found myself, and it's really interesting, and I love to do it, with the idea, would you believe that I found myself, what does that say?
Pie.
Pie. I found myself with the idea of pie. Now, I have an idea of pie as being somehow a Persian anecdote that I have seen written somewhere within compensation. What does that say?
The ruins of the heart.
The ruins of the heart is connected to the pie of my mind? Yeah. May I have the privilege of offering you from the University of Wisconsin, where I went to school some 125 years ago, or 150 or 200, so that I would be allowed to teach you a secret little book that may I sit down? I'm going to sit down. I'm carrying with me a secret little book, and I found myself down in Madison, and I had gone to the university in compensation for the idea that I'm teaching the action of the conversion of my mind in an effort to convey to you the idea, and I love it, in the idea that I would take a particular word, all right, in the understanding of the mechanics of the idea of pi, all right, which is a certain mathematical term that implies a derivative that can never be arrived at with the certainty, because the basis of its reality is its retention of uncertainty. There isn't anything new about it. What I would describe to you in pi is the simple idea, for example, and I'm going to use the ruins of the heart with Rumi, all right? Because the mind that I'm offering you will always be a compensation for, and this has to do with the stories we've been telling each other for a long time. Shall we practice a little bit? What's the name of that movie you're going to see on Friday?
The Da Vinci Code.
The Da Vinci Code. The idea of the Da Vinci Code is so beautifully presented in an essay by Ralph Waldo Emerson that it's frightening. Yet you like to make the connection of the action of the mind without the duplicity that the idea that Ralph Waldo Emerson teaches in his essays, the practice of the moral valuation of compensation. Now say to me, giving.
Giving.
Yeah, there is no question that the Da Vinci Code teaches that the act of giving will give secret compensation based on evidence that include both attack and forgiveness within the nature. Here, I'll read just an opening of the idea of Emerson, and we'll do a comparison with it in the idea that I'm here in Madison. Will you listen with me? This is the idea of the probably about 1884, in the idea that the relationship of the time, I'm described as a teacher. Okay, what I do is compensate within my mind for the possibility of the singularity of a reality that cannot be denied, all right, except by an observation that there is another manner in which I may look at my apparent containment within time. This is as good as the essays of Ralph Waldo Emerson will ever be. You listen with me. One man more who knows and believes a very certainty that man's soul is still alive, that God's universe is still godlike, that all of ages of miracles ever seen or dreamed of, by far the most miraculous is this age in this hour. And this has to do with Ralph Waldo Emerson, who was born May the 25th, 1803, and died April 27th in 1882. From the day that his works began to the days of his death, he taught and inspired men. He taught them to think and to believe in each other and in eternal justice. He inspired in them love of nature and friendship for each other. There should not be the word stranger in any language. All of Ralph Waldo Emerson's career rebukes despondency and hopelessness and teaches the inevitability of your perfection. To convince you that it is worth your while to read Emerson and become acquainted with the little thought book that I brought with me, a few quotations are going to suffice. God screens us evermore from premature ideas. What an amazing idea. It's the entirety of my teaching. Our eyes are holden that we cannot see things that stare us in the face until the hour arrives when the mind is ripened. Then we behold them, and the time when we saw them not is like a dream. Listen, it is impossible for a man to be cheated by anything but oneself. Can you get that idea? You listen with me now about what the old man likes to teach. Speech is power. Speech is to persuade, to convert, to compel. It is to bring another out of his bad sense into your good sense. You are to be missionary and carrier of all that is good and noble. Virtues speak to virtues, vices to vice, each to their own kind in the people with whom they deal. Are you listening with me? Debt, grinding debt, whose iron face the widow, the orphan, and the sons of genius fear and hate. Debt which consumes so much time, which so cripples and disheartens a great spirit, with cares that seem so base, is a preceptor whose lessons cannot be foregone. Listen, I can do that by another which I cannot do alone. I can say to you what I cannot first say to myself. It was a high counsel that I once heard given to a young person. Always do what you are afraid to do. Are you ready for that? The good are befriended even by weakness and defect, as no man has ever a point of pride that was not injurious to him, so no man has ever a defect that was not somewhere made useful to him. The stag in the fable admired his horns and blamed his feet, but when the hunter came, his feet saved him, and afterward, caught in the thicket, his horns destroyed him. Listen, misunderstood. It is a right fool's word. It is so bad than to be misunderstood that we're always dealing with ideas of the possibility that we're always misunderstood, and that our compensation from Ralph Waldo say, I learned the wisdom of St. Bernard. Nothing can work me damage except myself. The harm that I sustain, I carry about with me, and never am a real sufferer, but by my own verses, in which I am compensating for the idea that I had the privilege of reading to you ideas of exchanges of compensation, of what we intend to do, in the idea that it's possible for me to describe ideas in my mind concerning when I sat down with you and began to read you Ralph Waldo Emerson.